Yeah, so I've created so this one Luthalan was my initial language, and when I got to visit Iceland for a little bit, I really loved the Old Norse language that they have, because it's one of their own languages, but also having traveled a lot to Canada and in the U.S., I've met a lot of Inuit or like First Nations and even for the U.S. And so I kind of took their language and Icelandic and smushed it together, and that's what Luthalan is. It's an amalgamation of those two.
Everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter, the author podcast. We get to talk to amazing authors from around the world. And what I love about our guest today, Scott, is he's served his country. He's got some great stories to tell, and he's now writing as an author, and he's busy writing and writing and writing. He's got a lot of great stuff coming up for you. What I love is bringing on an author that's so prolific, and there doesn't seem like the tap's broken. It won't shut off. He just keeps writing, which is great. So there's a lot coming in the future for you as a reader as well. I'm excited to have Scott here on the show. Scott, welcome to Living the Next Chapter.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Excellent. First of all, we're getting close to November's Veterans Day. Here in Canada, we call Remembrance Day. Thank you for your service. Thank you for all that you've done in the past. We'll get to touch a little bit on that today, but I just want to acknowledge that and thank you for all that you've done. This is your time of the year, and it's really important to us.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate everybody from the people I served with, and even abroad. I've served alongside Canadians, the Dutch, German, English. So appreciate everybody.
Are the Canadian soldiers rowdy? Like, are they kind of subdued? Do they say sorry all the time? Like,
oh yeah, yeah. But no, they're pretty good guys. I enjoyed working with them. They would bring in stuff. It was mainly the Air Force that we worked with, and then they'd bring in supplies to us, and we would escort it to wherever they needed it.
Excellent. Talk a little bit about what you did in the service. It's pretty interesting. I think people love to know. Tell us a little bit about your background in the service as well.
Yeah, so I come from a family of military individuals. I skipped a generation, but then I decided to join back up and continue it. I joined the Navy, but first I tried the Marine Corps. Ended up in a car accident, broke my collarbone, could no longer do pull-ups, so I went to the Navy, and I still ended up with the Marine Corps as a United States Navy corpsman. For anybody who doesn't know what that is, it is basically a combat medic, or what they called as a field medical technician in the Navy. And basically my expertise was in combat trauma, TCCC, so tactical critical care, under combat operations. And so I got to see all the not so fun stuff. And then towards the end of my time in the service, I sat at a naval hospital at the Marine Corps base, and basically served a women's clinic, a children's clinic, and then just like a general clinic. I was over, I was what you call a lead petty officer over those three clinics. And so I got to see that side of healthcare in my last year of service.
Well, and you've been around the world too then, right?
Yeah, so I served 2 deployments. My first one was to Jordan in Iraq, and then my second was back to Iraq and then Yemen. So before the embassy shut down, we were there. So
for somebody thinking about serving, and they could have a few minutes with you, Scott, what's one thing that really had a big impact on you, changed you, made you a different person? What part of serving really had an impact on you?
Just a bunch of, like, I don't like to talk about people this way, but like a bunch of misfits with different backgrounds. You had your rich kids, you had your kids that lived underneath the poverty line. It didn't matter what color you were, it didn't matter what religion you were. You kind of all come together for the sole purpose of protecting your country and serving. Basically signing on that dotted line that if it were to happen, you would give your life to defend everybody on in the home front, and that kind of just washes away all the nasty issues that we have in the world today. And it gave me a greater sense of service and understanding that everything will be okay no matter what, whatever the outcome.
I think your worldview would be a lot different than most people. If we've grown up in the U.S., we've grown up in the same state, the same city, the same neighborhood, and we've never seen the world the way that you've seen the world, and you've seen some pretty upsetting things, but you've also traveled and seen different cultures and languages
Yes.
and food and everything, right? So does you think that kind of bigger worldview helps you now as an author, as you write? Does it give you different perspectives that you might not have had you not served like you had in the past?
Yeah, I think so, because as someone who grew up underneath the poverty line and like in a single mother household, we basically scraped by most of the time. And then being able to be kind of like thrust up into the military and being able to travel and meet Muslims and Jews and fellow servicemen and women and from Canada and the Dutch and all these other countries, you find out that even though we have borders and there's seas cross, you separating us, that we're all humankind. And the bigger picture is it kind of just puts it in perspective, because you get to see those cultures and how they live. And while some of them are the same, with just a little bit tweaks to them, it was definitely mind opening to see that, even though technically I grew up under the poverty line here in the U.S., I technically was middle class in the Middle East.
Right.
And it gave me a more respect for my family and for those people and what they have to deal with. And as far as it ties into me writing, that's kind of like why I have this big world. While there are, same races, they are different people with different cultures, different languages. And as we'll get in, like Cáelunárra is its own kind of like continent that has all of the cultures together. And they are trying to figure out how to coexist, because they have like one common enemy, but at the same time, they have deep rooted problems like we do as is human history.
Yeah, I can already pick up on this just by how you're explaining your military service background and what you've seen, and it seems like you're echoing a little bit of that in the story. I like that. Well, for the authors listening, Scott, they're here. They're looking for inspiration from somebody like you who's done what they're dreaming of doing. Like they're at the early beginning stages of writing. And I'm just curious, what would have been helpful for you when you first started writing? If you had heard a podcast or a conversation around writing, what kind of things could have maybe made things easier, or could have been helpful for you when you first started writing that maybe we can share with somebody who's starting today? What would be helpful?
I think, well, the first thing I would tell any author or a person who wants to do it is just do it. You're gonna suck at first. Like anybody, you're gonna get those words out onto the paper, and then you're going to or your computer, and when you go back and reread it, you're gonna be like, what was I thinking? But that is the whole point of drafts, and that's something that I kind of wish I would have learned in college. Is don't submit your first draft. I had tons of people tell me to not do that, but I always did it, and I always did well. But I learned real quick with a book, you can't submit your first draft or else it's horrible. So yeah, just work on that, get it out, and then from there, utilize online resources. We live in the digital age, right? It's really easy to find things, but also watch out for the scammers. If the scammers are horrible, even so as far as even publishing my book already, like, man, they come hot and heavy. Just breathe, enjoy the process, reach out to authors, and like if anybody needs anything, they can reach out to me. I'm always an open book. There's not a lot I can say right now without going on the huge deep dive.
Mm.
That'll take forever, but just get it done. Find good tools that are online. I don't know if I'm allowed to say them for copyright reasons. But yeah, like you utilize the ones that you have to pay for. Unfortunately, um, writing a book takes money.
Yeah.
Make sure that you have it. And these people who say, "Oh, I spent $50 to $100 on a cover," sorry, you're probably not getting good work. It may be good, but at the same time, you're not paying for a quality cover like I did and connecting with people across the world
Yeah.
like I did to get mine. And you're not um, you're gonna get more bang for your buck if you spend more. And
Yeah.
that's something that I learned, especially close to 6 grand in now on my first book. Right?
Really.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's just from programs to editors to book cover artist, paying someone to help me format the inside of the book. Um, and there, I'll just say it, Readsy is a very, very good tool. They are expensive, but they connect you to everybody, and that's editors, book cover artists, um, fan art, ghost writing. They have classes. They help you put out your first couple chapters, and all of that. And then another thing to do is to utilize beta and ARC readers. Beta readers are for like when you're really in your um, early stages of your first, second, third draft, and you want to know if your story is viable. That's when you're going to get the most constructive criticism, or even just plain out criticism. And this sucks.
Mm.
So put on that armor and be prepared to get stabbed through it, because it's
Yeah.
going to come and it's going to make you feel little, but it's all part of the process. And then your ARC reader is there whenever you've done your 20th draft of your book, if you get that far and you're like, this is ready to be published, we're almost there. um, and unfortunately that's going to come at a cost to you. And I would be who to, if you're from the US or any country, just focus in on your country. I went
Yeah.
big picture because I'm very fortunate that I have the funds to be able to do that. So I was able to tap markets in Australia, New Zealand, in Canada, Brazil, UK, Netherlands. Like I was able to send onesie twosies out to those countries. Um,
Nice.
and but utilize your ARC readers. Do a giveaway for it, right? Like make it fun. Um, do like a package, like gift, a little bit of fan art, and sign the book and thank them for their time. And then also be ready for people to say it sucks as well. And some people sign up for books and don't realize that they're in they want a romance novel and they signed up for a fantasy novel. And there are people who are like, they want nothing but spice in their book, where they like that versus they don't like the full trudge of a world build like you would
Mm-hmm.
get in C.S. Lewis or Tolkien or
Yeah.
Sanderson, like any one of the greats, right?
Yeah.
Um, you want to be as transparent with them as possible, so that way, whenever you're tapping into those markets, um, you're getting the most bang for your buck because you're fronting that money. Um, and also, just also know that you're probably only getting about 10 to 15% of those to actually respond after you've done it. So it's very much just like scientific testing. You're probably going to spend $300-400 on printing, shipping, and all of that, and maybe you're going to get. For me, I sent out 100 books. I got 13. I got 13 back.
Mm.
So that's barely 10. That's a little over 10%, right?
Yeah.
So that's what you're dealing with, and I just encourage them to not be discouraged and to know it's all part of the process. You're basically against the man who has billions of dollars,
Right.
and your ads that you're putting out, unless you have hundreds of dollars, don't do it. It's a waste. You're never going to get clicks because they guarantee you to that you'll get 1 to 2 clicks for every 10 cents that you do. But when say you put $10, you're maybe gonna have 1 or 2 people click, and that's not gonna get anything to come back. Whereas your big time authors, they're paying thousands of dollars per clicks, so they're gonna generate more than you. So the best thing to do is to get on podcasts, find a good PR person, find groups, network online. You're gonna have to give out a lot of free books. I've probably given out 100 free books, and those go so much further than someone buying it, because you're basically offering up your baby to the sacrificial table, and just saying, I believe in this book. It's good. These are what some people have told me, and I hope you enjoy it. And here you go. Like, take it.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, just a few weeks ago, I was like in Seattle in the airport, and this lady was just saw me just scribbling away in book 2, and she's like, "What book are you working on? Why are you like tearing up that book?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm an author." And she's like, "Oh, okay. Like, I'm gonna get onto Amazon and buy your book." And I was like, "I could do you one better." And I go into my backpack and I hand her one, and she's just like, "Wait, what? Really?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course. Like, if you like it, tell people about it. If not, donate it. Like, it's no harm, no foul." And she came back and she bought me lunch, and like it goes a long way. It goes a long way if giving away free books. They see people as that you're not in it for the money, and that you're in it for the craft.
I can hear it in your voice, Scott. I can tell that this is a really big passion project for you. And have you always been a writer? Like, is this something you've loved doing since you were a kid?
Yes. So I started writing from a pretty young age, and it all stemmed from Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling. I remember jumping into my first book, the Sorcerer's or Philosopher's Stone. I remember having to get the Philosophers because that's all that was available at the time, before it came to the U.S., and just absolutely falling in love with it. And there was a hit show on at the time. I can't remember it, but these guys basically end up on an island full of dinosaurs and whatnot, and it's kind of like fantasy mixed with new agey kind of thing. And I fell in love with all of that. And then as I got older, I got into Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, and I really absolutely loved those. And so I started writing from there, and then it kind of faded away because high school and woe is me as high school. But I started writing music and touring with my band, or a band. It wasn't mine, it was ours. And that was a whole nother fun experience in itself. And then as I got older and moved away, I stopped playing music, I stopped writing, and this is more turned into an outlet from years in the military, years in law enforcement, and just life. And so I use it more as an outlet to help myself, and I get to be creative, and my daughter gets to see me being creative, and that it's okay to be creative, and it's okay to have fantasies and things that other people don't quite understand why you do it, and it's okay to be excited about it.
I've had many veterans on this show, and I find that to be probably some of the most engaging conversations, to have people like you on the show. And one thing that seems to be one of the common things that I hear from people who have served is coming back home and trying to find your place back home again in this kind of recreating yourself and finding your purpose. And there's a family element when you're traveling and you're serving with the men and women you serve with. You come home and that part's not the same. And I find a lot of veterans coming back trying to find their purpose again.
Yeah.
So for you, writing is one of those things for you that you really lean into to kind of
Yes.
for your mental health, your physical health, and creativity. This is really something that fuels you. Then,
Yes, it does. Yeah, it definitely does. So I it's kind of consuming me now, kind of like the military did, but in a good way. So,
yeah, there's a it's a positive thing, right? You're finding your purpose again, which I love. As an author, then, is there anything you're doing differently for book two that you are changing from your approach to book one, or some lessons you've learned that you're going to kind of tweak for the next one you're working on?
yeah. So for me, it's not rushing
Okay.
the art of writing. When I first initially did book one, um, I wrote like 1,500 pages, and then my initial editor was just like, that this is not good, but you got something. You need to split this into 3 books,
Oh
and
wow.
he's like, maybe keep it 200 to 300 pages, but me, I don't listen because I am stubborn, and so I partially listened, and I split up the 3 books. I mean, the book into three, and then I've been filling in the gaps, slowing down the story, and that's kind of what I did from my first initial draft. Um, and then in book two, well, just kind of for like background, book one kind of follows my main characters
Okay.
from the time things happen, um, or I will just say they crash land into my world, and they're kind of swept away into this new universe that they're in. Um, and this book one, follows them from the time that they leave where they're at, they crash land, and kind of getting into this like uh, the lore and the background and why they're here and what is happening. But I also write it in a way that it's very vague, so it's going to upset the reader, but also it's upsetting the reader because they feel like they're one of the five. Like,
Okay.
why are we getting half answers and half truths and all these different things? And 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 then I introduce you to all like the secondary and tertiary characters in towards the end of book one, and then in book two I've introduced those characters. So in book one we follow the five. It's kind of from their entire point of view, and in book two, kind of while it is still in that third person omniscient and it's kind of like a narrator telling you the story, you're
Yeah.
following the five as well as um, like our characters Sa'a and Elfwine and Talor and Alara, and you're gonna have elements of the five with Andronius and all these other different people that are kind of mixed in, and then I pull in people that are like pseudo important to the story, but I try to focus on the people who have the greatest what's the word, the greatest impact on the story in there, and they're like basically just kind of compare it to like Lord of the Rings. You have like your Marys and Pippins, they're off doing their thing with Isengard and the Ents, and then you have Sam and Frodo doing their thing, and then Aragorn and Gandalf and Gimli and Legolas, they're doing their own thing. And so I've kind of taken my world and broken it up so you can follow everything. So that way it's just not so monotonous. You'll get
Right.
you'll get bits and pieces where it's like you're following them and then something happens and now we're going to follow these other characters. So you don't know how long it's going to be until you get back to them. Sometimes it's 1 chapter, sometimes it's 5 chapters. And so I've kind of just gone back and forth. And the other thing that I've done is in book one, it's kind of happy go lucky. There's a lot of, oh, this is great. It's a new world. Um, you know, sure, there is this Dark Lord. He hasn't really done anything. We've had some interactions with some of his Shade Walkers, but then towards the end of book one, it kind of flips the script, and then you're like, "Oh, this is real. This isn't going to be happy." And then in book two, it's where, I mean, you jump off, you jump off the diving board, the 50-foot high rise, and you sink to the very bottom. And it's all done in a way to kind of push the reader away from happy fantasy because, like I said, a lot of the stuff that I've been writing about is kind of things that I've seen or done or felt in my own personal life, and um, twisted it into a fantasy realm. That way,
Okay.
it's more palatable in a sense.
So for the readers, then, who are some of the main characters that were introduced early in your first book? Give us kind of an overview of their who they are, kind of their character, what makes them who they are.
Okay.
Who do we meet first?
So you're first going to meet Ethan Johnson. He is kind of like your typical high school student who's graduating. He's got his entire world in front of him. Um, he's attractive. Everybody likes him. He does really well in school. Um, and he's just kind of like the all around guy, kind of like the leader, and had everything handed to him. He's the rich kid. Um, I mean, it is his dad who flies them to Fiji, where they're supposed to be going on their graduation trip. And then you have Hannah. She is kind of like the love interest for Ethan, and she is kind of like your goody two shoes church girl from Utah. Does everything right. She's the daughter of a bishop, and so she's just she's always happy, and again, everybody likes, everybody likes to be around, and she's your staple Utah girl. Uh, um, then you have Emily, who is interested in Ethan, but she feels overwhelmed by Hannah. But they are good friends, and she comes kind of from like a single family home. She's had to work for everything in her life. Um, she she kind of your short, quirky, smart book girl, and she's about to go to medical school across the country and kind of dive into her own world. You have Jake, who is Ethan's best friend. He's kind of like the really tall, bulky farmer guy, because my story initially takes place in a rural Utah city, and it's known for farming and basically a flyover. And so he grew up on a farm going up into the Uintas, which is a local mountain range here, um, herding sheep and cattle and just kind of living that kind of life. And he's kind of going to be the guy who um, he's going to try to be the Samwise to Ethan. And then you have Ryan. Ryan is your baseball player. He's an athlete. He's coming off the high of winning state championship for the first time in over 30 years for their team, especially since this little town is nothing and they're going against a huge city in the Salt Lake metro area. And then they win. He's kind of the quiet one, but kind of quiet, reserved. He's kind of just like your background character. But yeah, he's those are the main five, or the chosen, or the champions of Cáelunárra. Um, and then you have Andronius, who is the seer of enigmas, and he's kind of like he's been appointed by the Grand Mage, who basically follows and how do I say this? He follows people of interest in other worlds. He helps build prophecy. He helps, weave intricate lines uh, of of fate, in a sense, through what he sees through an Acephaly stone, which is basically connected to the Allfather and Ithulien, one of the other, like the Godhead, the two of the Godhead, and then you have on the other side you have the Dark Lord, who is Murietio, and he is kind of the creator of the darkness, and he portrays himself as the light to his brother Ithulien, who is the light, who he sees as the dark. They kind of both see him that way. And he's kind of perverted the creatures that Ithulien created, and created like the orcs and the goblins, the gorlocks, I mean, you have the Goraks, the Bruxagol, the Vruxadrums. You have all these different creatures that are based off of real creatures that Thulian created, and so there is this big like power push between the two. And some of like the tertiary or the secondary carries that are important are like Sa'a. He is Grand Marshal. Then you have Talor, who is the Grand General. Alara, who is Talor's um, sister, and then you have Aelfwena, who is somebody who started in the darkness, then came to the light. So he's kind of one of those defectors that made it away. Um, yeah. So those are some of my characters that we have.
Okay, you like filled an arena with the amount of people in this book. Where, okay, as a non-author, this is my non-author question. Where do all these people come from for you? Like, I know it's probably a process. It doesn't all come at once, but, and then how are you? Like, I have 3 kids, so I've named 3 humans. That's all I can do. I guess did pretty well because they're fine. But you've named all these people and you've given them identity and backstory and character traits. Like, you're talking about these people like you know them intimately. How do
Yeah.
you do all that? I don't, as a non-author, I have no idea how you do this. So can you kind of give me some back behind the scenes of how you build all this intricate detail around all these people?
So I have a very large. I will say it's very hard to keep my train of thought correct when I'm trying to do
Okay.
all these things. So I have a very nice detailed Excel spreadsheet,
Okay. Okay.
right? So that I
Yeah.
have with them, so I kind of know where their arc's going, and then I fill in backstory as I go. Um, and then it all kind of stems from the 10,000 years previous of the world that is in another time sheet, like another spreadsheet that is the history of the world from the time the Allfather snapped his fingers and poof, the world was there.
Mm-hmm.
And and so it kind of goes from the time he created it all the way to where we are now. And so I wanted to create people in a world that felt like our own. So when people read it, it's an epic. It's like a saga. You could connect, maybe not with Ethan, but you could connect with Hannah, or you could connect with Andronius, but maybe not Elfwina. Um, and these characters are loosely based on people that I know.
Okay.
Um, Kind of character traits, maybe not
Yeah.
necessarily their names, but for
Yeah.
instance, Andronius is very much like my grandfather, and how he was wise but also very temperamental. um, but also he wasn't going to give you your answer on a silver platter.
Okay.
you ha-
Yeah.
he's like, how do I clean a gun? He's like, well, okay, we'll take it apart and put it back together. But what if I
Right.
have a piece wrong? Well, then take it apart and put it back together until you get it right. Right. So that's basically how Andronius is. And then all of the 5 are kind of bits and pieces of myself. Um,
Oh.
so that's just kind of like how I feel it, because like Ryan, I was an athlete. I was on a star baseball team for our town. Um, we went to CIF. We didn't win, but we lost.
Hmm.
I am like Hannah. I'm very entrenched in my faith, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I'm kind of like Emily, where I'm not sure about the faith. I've always, it's kind of blind faith. I'm doing it, but I'm also very sure of it. And then like Jake, like I grew up like on a farm, not with that many cattle or sheep. We had horses and chickens
Yeah.
and rabbits and stuff like that. Um, and then, like Ethan, I am very temperamental. I feel like I'm owed certain things, just kind of like I was as a youth. I felt like I was owed it, and that I didn't have to work for it, and I could just have everything handed to me. And so
Right.
those are kind of loosely based off of myself and
Yeah.
how their character arcs are going to be very much like myself, how I've learned certain things, or if that part of me dies off, that part of them is going to die off.
Right.
And so that's how
So
they come of age. And
okay.
then yeah, so that's just kind of how it's going, and that's how I've built my characters, is they're loosely based off of people, or I'm trying to think of like for instance, there's in my third, it's in my second book. Yeah, it's in my second book. There's a there's a girl who I just poofed into the story, and she's a barmaid, and she ends up following one of the other characters, but she really has no rhyme or reason, but she is there because she is going to do something to help said character later on, right? She may or may not have a purpose, but she does have a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are those, like, we'll just call them like quaternary characters that um, are there that I've created, but they're not as intimately known.
Out of the five, we'll narrow it down to the five. They're all like little elements of you. Which of the five would be one of the characters that you personally feel the most connection with? Like you could hang out with and you would be like a good friend with? Like which one do you feel drawn to in particular?
So I would say Ethan, because you know I am a hothead. I um, as I've gotten older, it's kind of gone away, but I am kind of writing it so in a sense that it's me talking to my younger self,
Mm.
in a sense. And so
Okay.
Ethan is somebody that I can connect with, and kind of like, I don't know. Think of it as like I'm the teacher and he is the apprentice, in a sense, and I'm trying to craft him into being whatever he wants to be. But he has to tap into his unknown intelligence and his potential, and just learn to breathe, in a sense. And so that's kind of more or less who I would want to be with, because I want to be able to help him achieve greatness,
Okay.
and
And then
not go through the slog of life
right.
feeling like everything is owed to him.
Okay. And then let's flip it on the other way. Oil and water. One of the five that you don't see yourself in the same room with this person. They walk in, you walk out. Like there's just something there that you just can't connect with this character. Which one of the five is the one that makes you feel the most uneasy?
Also Ethan,
Oh,
it's very
really?
weird. Yeah, I would
Okay.
say also Ethan, but I don't want to pick him for specific reasons, because I don't want to go into it. But
Okay.
I would say Emily or Ryan. When I created them, they're kind of more like fringe things that I wanted to do. When I got out of the military, I wanted to go to medical school. Right, that was my
Right.
big dream, because I had just served in the military, corpsman. It's all I knew, and I
Yeah.
absolutely loved it. And I was like, man, I have the potential to do this. Right, I did it for 5 years, and I did really well at it. And like, never thought I would do this, and so I was like, okay, um, I'm gonna do it. But then I got told no to every medical school or PA school or MP school, even though I had all the credentials to do it. And
Really.
so that is like a part of me that I don't want anymore, because it's kind of a touchy subject, because it's something that I
Yeah.
loved, but I also hated. Um,
Mm.
and so it's kind of almost like a jealousy thing, I would say, that she got it. All right. And it's a part of me that I never got to do. And then as far as Ryan, it's also kind of the same thing. Um, that's when it was a CIF game in the state. It was the last game of the season. We were this little no good dirty city in the middle of the California desert, and a little Catholic school. We should have, by all means, we shouldn't have been there. We shouldn't have taken out teams from West Hollywood and Brentford and Sacramento and San Francisco, but we were a dream team, and we just kept on plowing through everybody.
Mm.
And we got to the final game, and we were playing this other West Hollywood team. Um, And all I remember is I know that we lost, but I remember it was the first inning, first ring of the bat, and then I woke up in the hospital. And we lost the game surprisingly 18, I think it was 18 to 10, so we put up a good fight, right? But I was their star first baseman. I had I had UCLA, University of Minnesota when they still had a baseball team. I had the Cleveland Indians or now the Guardians, and I had the Chicago Cubs because I had a friend who made it pro and was playing for the Nationals, but he came up through the Indians farm, and then my cousin he played a season for the Cubs. So I was the next one coming up. They're like, "Hey, this little town is producing baseball players," and so they were really recruiting heavily out of it, and I was set to go, and then it all ended when I got my first TBI from that, and couldn't play baseball anymore because that's now why I have to wear glasses because it screwed up my vision, and like it derailed everything. My entire golden platter handed to me, right? So it's kind of jealousy. So like those two, I would just be like, it's not a part of me that I want to go back to, you know?
So a car crash changed your path.
Yeah,
A TBI changes your path again.
yeah,
Don't go outside, Scott. Stay home. We need you to just keep going on this path you're on because you're really happy right now.
yeah.
Yeah, I would just be careful. There's something around you. I don't know what this is.
Yeah, and and it was actually an injury being outside that led me to writing books. So
There you go. Right?
so
Okay. All right. For the reader, Scott, they're going to buy a copy of your book. They're going to be first-time readers. They got a copy in their hands. They're going to open it for the first time. If you could kind of burst into the room and go, wait a minute, before you read this, you got to know this. What is it that we need to know? What's your love letter to me as a reader before I read one single word of this book? What do I need to know before I start this journey with you?
be ready for take it slow and steady because that
Okay.
is how this book is.
Okay.
It is definitely not a book that we'll just say so for like the George R. R. Martin fans and the Sanderson fans, this isn't gonna go jumping right into things. This isn't me talking. I don't want to say that I'm like one of the greats, but a lot of people have already said that I have a writing style where C.S. Lewis meets Tolkien. So it's very
Wow.
slow. It's very in depth. There's a lot of lore. There's a lot of I use a lot of more astute language in it. Just know that it is like a tough piece of jerky. You're gonna be gnawing on it, but trust it and get through it because
Okay.
it's the end game is great,
All
and
right.
it's gonna twist you. It's gonna twist you very hard. But just like any great epic, you're gonna have to get through it. You're gonna have to trudge through it with them.
All right. Well, that's going to set up this part here, Scott, because I asked you and you graciously agreed to read to us a little bit from the book. Can you kind of give us a little bit of insight on what we're going to be stepping into as far as the storyline and kind of set it up a little bit for us? And then I'm just going to go sit with the audience and enjoy. I love when an author reads to me from their own book because those are your words. So hearing them from you, I think, is something I enjoy that even more than a professional, audiobook person. I love hearing the author. So can you set it up a little bit for us so we know what we're going to get into?
Yeah. So our five, our five, they're being put through a thing called the tests, or it's a trial, and this is towards the end of the test where Hannah has been spending the greater part of 4 or 5 days trying to piece together the language that is Luthalen. It's the language of the elves, and she at this point hasn't known if her four other friends had passed their test, but she's assuming they have because she is there in the Colosseum in front of everybody. They've had 4 days of celebrations and fighting and all these other things like you would see like in Rome in the Colosseum, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But they throw this big majestic thing whenever the five come from our world to their world and hope to it's a hope that the dark with these five the Dark Lord will finally be put to rest and gone for good.
Okay.
And so she's there in the Colosseum, and some things have already happened in the backstory. There's been a change in power, and this is again towards the end of the book. But I feel like this kind of shows off the political prowess, the world building, the language building, and kind of where this you're about to hit the water, like I said, off the high dive. You're hitting that water and you're sinking. This is where it begins. So we are going to. It's a brand new book because I finally got hardbacks. So
There you go.
we're in chapter 37. It's called Hannah's Test, which she is the last one. There we go. As they approached the Colosseum, lutes strummed and singers' melodious voices filled the air, celebrating the final day of the test. Stalls lined the streets with their owners selling a variety of wares. Dancers twirled gracefully in the open squares, their colorful garments billowing around them like flower petals in the breeze. Children ran through the crowds, their laughter mingling with the jubilant chatter of the townsfolk. They neared the grand gates of the Colosseum, which stood wide open and welcoming the throngs of people who had come to witness the last test. Before they stepped inside, Andronius gently placed a hand on Hannah's shoulder, causing her to pause. "There's something you must know about Ethan," he said, his tone serious. Her heart skipping a beat, Hannah's mind raced with worry. "Did he die?" she asked, her voice trembling, fearing the worst. Andronius chuckled, softly shaking his head. "No, dear Hannah. He is very much alive. Would I be escorting you to the Colosseum if he had failed or perished? Anyway, he took quite the knock on the head last night, after he delivered the killing blow to the beast. It dropped its club right on his head and knocked him out cold. He has quite the case of amnesia now, poor lad." "That's a shame. He will hate not remembering what he completed," Hannah stated. "I know he hasn't let me forget," Andronius replied with a small chuckle. "But it's important that we keep telling him he fulfilled his test. I looked into his mind. There's nothing since. Well, that part does not matter. But since he has no memory of it, he might need to be reminded he succeeded." Hannah nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "Well, you can count on me to support him." Andronius smiled warmly at her. "I know you will. Now let us make our way to the podium and bring these tests to their conclusion. I've had about enough of spectacles for one life." They walked through the grand entrance of the Colosseum, the noise of the crowd growing louder. As they neared the stairs leading up to the seating area, the atmosphere was energetic. The crowd was reveling in anticipation that this was the day they would start the next chapter of their world and hopefully usher in peace by removing the Dark Lord from Cáelunárra. As they approached the podium, Hannah's eyes scanned the faces of the crowd, searching for her friends. She spotted them in the distance, each dressed in fine garments befitting the occasion. Even Ethan, despite the bandage around his head and a slight pallor to his skin, looked strong and resolute. Jake, Ryan, and Emily were there too, their expressions a mixture of emotions as they saw Hannah approaching. Hannah kept silent, her heart aching to run to them, to embrace them after so many days apart. Instead, she maintained her composure, her face a mask of calm as she took her place next to Isolde, who was seated among the dignitaries. Isolde gave her a reassuring smile, squeezing her hand gently as she sat down. Hannah's heart was pounding with the anticipation of this moment. The Colosseum held a packed crowd to the brim. The torches that lined the walls flickered about in the breeze. As Hannah settled into her seat, she took a deep breath, feeling the enormity of the Elven language, the history, and the legacy she was about to carry forward. The final test awaited her as Cáelunárra watched from their prepared stage. Andronius made his way to the podium, below which the finishing acts of the Braldorian comedic act were underway. The performers, dressed in loose-fitting clothes of flashing colors, executed their final dance steps with a flourish before bowing deeply to the cheering crowd. Their faces beamed with satisfaction as applause echoed through the grand Colosseum. Andronius joined in, clapping in unison with the masses that filled the arena. He then stepped forward, his presence commanding attention, and spoke, his voice carrying across the vast space. Thank you, performers. Your retelling of the Battle of the Bouncing Beards is always a pleasure, he said with a warm smile, bowing in gratitude to the departing performers. He paused momentarily, allowing the echoes of the crowd's cheers and clapping to fade as the performers elegantly exited the Colosseum floor. Raising his hands, he addressed the audience once more. "'Tis a beautiful morning here in Valoria, the calm after the storm. Though the air remains foggy as the darkness retreats from our land, it leaves behind the promise of new growth and prosperity. With every inch the fog retreats, it brings forth new opportunities for life to flourish." He paused again, his gaze sweeping over the sea of faces before him. "Like today," he exclaimed, his voice filled with conviction. "Over the past 5 days, 4 of our champions have proved themselves in various tasks set forth by me and the High Mage Council. And now our last test remains. Hannah will complete our trials, setting loose the prophecy that has long been foretold, that 5 would be delivered from another world and deliver us from evil. This marks the beginning of our hopeful last stand against the Dark Lord Miriethiel, our chance to sever the head of the beast that is Karzanov, and to bring a new light to the land of Cáelunárra, bringing in a lasting peace for all." Andronius paused, his thoughts briefly returning to his conversation with Hannah that morning. The weight of the responsibility she carried was not lost on him. He scanned the crowd, lowering his hands to his side, his gaze intense and thoughtful as he scratched his scruffy beard, pondering his next words. He raised his arm and pointed toward the people gathered before him. 5,000 years, he began, his voice resonating with a deep solemn tone. For 5,000 years, our people have endured the shadow of Miriethiel's tyranny. We have seen our lands ravaged, our loved ones taken, and our spirits tested. But we have also seen the resilience of our people, the unbreakable will to survive, to fight, and to reclaim what is ours. Today, as we stand on the precipice of a new era, we must remember that war, though never desirable, has its place in the great wheel of peace. It is the crucible through which our freedom must be forged. The crowd listened intently, the gravity of his words sinking. War is a terrible price to pay, and it leaves scars that last lifetimes. But there are times when it is the only path to liberation, the only way to rid our world of the darkness that seeks to consume it. Miriethiel's reign of terror must end, and it falls to us, to our champions, to ensure that his evil is vanquished once and for all. Andronius let his words hang in the air for only a moment. "This is our time," he continued, his voice growing stronger, more impassioned. "Our time to rise, to take back what has been stolen from us, to light the way for future generations who will know peace of the sacrifices we make today. Let it be known that we did not seek this war, but we will see it through to its end. And when the dust settles, when the lives of the slain have been numbered, when their loved ones have laid them to rest and were grieved their loss, and when the cities have been rebuilt from the rubble of this great terror, we will stand together, united in victory, as the dawn of a new age rises over Cáelunárra." The crowd erupted into cheers, their voices a powerful chorus of hope. Andronius stood tall at the podium, his heart filled with both the burden of leadership and the fierce pride of a people ready to reclaim their lands. Andronius then gestured for Hannah to approach. She rose gracefully, pacing her way toward the stand where she would share the stage with him, if only for a moment. As she stood beside him, the contrast between them was striking. Andronius, a towering figure of power and authority, and Hannah, a beacon of grace and hope. He wrapped an arm around her in a warm embrace, kissing the top of her head, and then raised his arm to speak again. "Hannah," he began, his voice resonating with pride, "the very picture of beauty and elegance. She stands as a beacon that bridges the gap between elves and the other races of Cáelunárra. Over the past few days, she has lived among them in the ever-beautiful elven embassy. She has painstakingly studied word upon word their language, and now she will recite it and close these ceremonies, mending the tears of her societal differences, showing that we can unite once more." The crowd erupted once more in applause and cheers. Andronius leaned down to whisper in Hannah's ear, I believe in you, Hannah. This is your time to shine. He patted her on the back before stepping away, receding to the crowd to take his seat next to Isolde. Hannah took a deep breath and shuffled fully behind the podium. The crowd fell silent, eager to hear her speak. Her mind flashed back to the first book she had opened, the one that introduced her to Luthalen, with Isolde's help, and then to the morning's feast prepared in her honor by the elves. She pulled a small piece of parchment from her pocket, its surface inscribed with the delicate script of Luthalen. Placing it on the podium, she began first in a common tongue. Great people of Cáelunárra, I come to fulfill my promise to you by speaking the language of the elves, Luthalen. First, I want to thank Isolde and my teachers at the Territorion of André for the many painstaking hours they spent with me as I fumbled, eviscerated, and made a mockery of their language. I'm no showman like Andronius or the others who have taken this stage, but I wanted to thank you for being here and now believing in my friends and me as we strive to better your world. Now let me begin with what you all have been waiting for. She paused, looking down at her parchment, then recited in Elvish, Erythria, Aldoria, Aldemir, Braldor, Valorev, Valrilin, Verithrion, Eoth, Etherion, Cáelunárra, Ilareth, Valthar, Varith, Aranine, Nith Muriethia, Eth Anchelai, Ilar, Varanith, Bethrion. From beyond the Colosseum, a sudden clamor of terrified screams could be heard. The once unified crowd quickly became a sea of worry, heads turning toward the source of commotion. The tension was unequivocal, and an uneasy murmur spreading through the stands. Andronius rushed to the podium, his voice booming as he called for silence. But as the crowd calmed, his eyes widened in horror. Rising in the sky were fireballs, arching ominously toward the city. Trebuchet! Andronius shouted, the words hanging in the air like a death knell. He paused, catching his breath before yelling, Man the battle stations! To the grand barracks! Every man, woman, and child able to fight! Head to the barracks to take up arms. All those who cannot fight, take shelter where you can. Horns began bellowing from the depths of the city, a dire warning of the attack, though its origin was still unknown. The crowd, once celebratory, now descended into chaos, a frantic scramble occurring as people tried to flee or arm themselves in defense of Valoria. Andronius rushed back to where Ethan, Emily, Jake, and Ryan sat, sheltering Hannah with his body, and shepherded them toward cover. As they ran, a whooshing sound suddenly filled the air, followed by a dark cloud rapidly overtaking the sky. The fluttering mass resembled birds, but the terror in the crowd revealed the truth. A midnight volley is upon us. The screams of fear turned to cries of pain as the rain of obsidian-tipped arrows and shards of wood fell, striking down many where they stood. With urgency, Andronius shouted, Hit the floor! Crawl, crawl, into the depths of the Colosseum! They dropped to the ground, crawling over the bodies of those who had fallen, the blood-soaked floor slick beneath them from the many people not as fortunate as they. The cries of the injured and dying mixed with the relentless thudding of the trebuchet fire pots as they pounded the city. Jake and Ryan struggled to drag Ethan, who was still dazed and weakened from the events of the previous day, barely comprehended the siege around him. They reached a covered area below the stands of the Colosseum, safe for a moment from the volleys of arrows. The sounds of battle outside still reached them, the pounding of fire pots, the clang of metal as soldiers took up arms, the distant roars of the enemy. Terror paid Vasilios' face as the Colosseum's caretaker huddled in the nearby corner. He was a small, unassuming man, dressed in quaint, worn clothing that spoke of a simple life. His eyes were wide with fear, his hands trembled as he crouched low, a pool of urine beneath him. Catching a sight of them, Andronius yelled, Get yourself together, Vasilios. We are under attack. Whimpering, Vasilios cried, I cannot fight, Andronius. I'm too old for this. I've seen my fair share of war. All my sons have been lost to these battles. Andronius scoffed in frustration, but before he could respond, Mithralon and Lorenthos tumbled down the stairs, narrowly escaping another volley of arrows. In their haste, they collided with Emily, sending her sprawling. Emily cried out in pain as her face slammed into the stone floor. My apologies, my lady, Mithralon said, quickly helping her to her feet as blood gushed out of her nose. Lorenthos's eyes remained fixed on them, making sure the girl was all right. before he walked over to the stairs to observe and assess the situation. Firepots continued to rain down in tandem with the midnight volleys. Andronius, his voice thick with urgency, asked, "Do we know who mounted the attack?" The questions from the group came in rapid succession, each more frantic than the last. "What is going on?" Ethan demanded, his confusion evident. "Who would do this?" Jake added, his voice tinged with disbelief. "But I didn't finish," Hannah said, her voice small, more concerned about her interrupted recitation than the surrounding chaos. Emily, more practical, shot back, "That isn't important right now, Hannah. Andronius, what do we do?" Jake remembered that Alara was caught up somewhere in all of this. "I must find Alara because she needs me. I mean, us. We can't leave her behind." Emily fired back at Jake, her tone sharp. "She'll be fine, Jake. Right now, we are more important. Now let Andronius speak." Feeling a fire burning his heart, Jane turned his unease on Emily. "No, you don't know if she'll be all right. Andronius, can we get her? Can I get her? You need to make sure she's alive and at least protected." Echoing Jake's sentiment, Ryan said, "Yes, we should go find her." "Silence," Andronius bellowed, his frustration boiling over. "This is no time to squabble. There are more pressing issues. I'm trying to think." He looked around desperately, his mind racing. He counted the group over and over in his mind in quick succession before realizing that someone was missing. And he started crying out, "Isolde, Isolde, where are you, my dear?" Lorenthos, one of the elves, approached him carefully, his arms stretched outward, his hand landing on his shoulder, his voice heavy with sorrow. "She did not survive, Andronius. The volley was too much. I saw it with my own eyes." The world seemed to collapse around Andronius as he processed Lorenthos' words. His heart felt as if it were being torn from his chest, and a wail of pure agony escaped his lips, a sound so raw and powerful that it sent shivers down the spines of those around him. His grief quickly turned to rage as he fell to his knees. The ground beneath them trembled as his power surged, the air around him darkening as his anger took hold. "That is enough," he roared, his voice filled with fury. "We must win this battle against Muriathiel. He has already taken too much from me. My brother and sisters, my son, my friends, and now he steals the love I will never find again." Breathing heavily, Andronius turned his gaze to Vasilius, who was still cowering on the ground. Without warning, he charged at the caretaker, grabbing him by the hair and slamming him against the stone wall. "Do the tunnels still exist?" he demanded, his voice a dangerous whisper. "Ow, let me go," Vasilios whimpered, tears running down his face, but Andronius was relentless, slamming the man's head against the wall. "Vasilius, do the tunnels do exist?" he screamed, his face mere inches from the caretaker's. Yes, they exist," Vasilius cried out, his voice trembling with fear. Andronius released him, casting him to the ground where the caretaker curled into the fetal position. Turning his burning gaze to the two elven guards, he commanded them, "You will take them to the woods, do you hear me?" Mithralon stepped forward, his expression grave. "That road is forbidden for humans to use." Andronius turned to him, his eyes blazing. "I know, but the tidal path is likely blocked by this unseen army. This has to be the work of Muriathiel and Angeli. If we go that way, our escape will certainly result in death. And who knows what lies to the south and west? The Kitsback and the Futsa Mountains are too tall for us to escape to, and who knows what may be lying between them and Willowdale and Ellison." Hesitation laced his words. Lorenthos began. "But if King Ithermaris finds out we are taking that forbidden path, he will surely have all of us killed." "Do not fight me now on this," Andronius snapped, his patience worn thin. "Once he hears of the desecration of Valoria, he will have no other choice. Have him send aid to the town of Fernwick and Thaldrum, where I will send our people if Valoria falls. Now, run like you've never run before. Your lives depend on it." Mithralon and Lorenthos began arming everyone from the weapons left behind in the rush to escape the Colosseum walls, shoving swords and seals into the hands of all except Vasilius, who remained huddled in the corner. Ethan, still trying to make sense of the chaos, called out, "But what about you, Andronius? Will you not come?" Already turning away and leaving, Andronius replied, "I will find you at Fernwick in 7 days' time. If you are not there, I will come to Eldrath and petition King Ithermaris to find you all. My place is here with the people of Valoria and those who are its guests. I am now the leader of the Republic, and I must stand firm with our people in its time of trial. The prophecy has now indeed been unleashed. Lorenthos, his voice laced with concern, asked, "And if we are to be executed?" As Andronius slipped into the shadows, he answered coldly, "Use the girl." The old mage's last words puzzled everyone. What girl? In that confusion, they all exchanged uneasy glances. Examining the man still cowering and whimpering on the floor, Lorenthos kicked Vasilios, demanding, "Where is the tunnel, coward?" Vasilios, his face pale with terror, pointed weakly. "Behind me, on the other side of the wall. Find the phoenix and pull the fifth tail feather from the right. It will give way and open a passage." "Hurry," Mithron shouted, grabbing a torch and leading the way around the corner, the others following closely behind. Mithron ran his torch along the wall, revealing the intricate golden carvings of animals, stags, bears, fish, birds, and more. His eyes locked onto the phoenix, with Ruby Eye standing out against the others. Handing the torch to Ryan, who struggled to support Ethan, Mithron counted in Luthalen. En, tur, thir, far, vir. He glanced at Lorenthos, took a deep breath, and pulled on the tail feather. Gears groaned as they started turning, and the wall slowly gave way, revealing a narrow passage in the floor. One by one, they slipped through, descending into the dark, dank and foul-smelling tunnels beneath the city.
Scott, I love it. There's so much there. I feel like I was like right in step with your characters. I feel like I'm in the story. And you have, okay, what kind of languages is this? Like, there's so many interesting words in there. Like, come on.
I've created, so this one, Luthalen, was my initial language. And when I got to visit Iceland for a little bit, I really loved the Old Norse language that they have, because it's one of their own languages. But also having traveled a lot to Canada, and in the U.S., I've met a lot of Inuit or like First Nations, and even for the U.S. And so I kind of took their language and Icelandic and smushed it together, and that's what Luthalen is. It's an amalgamation of those two.
We have listeners in Iceland that are going to be listening to this going, "That sounds familiar to me. Like, there's something about this book." So that's interesting that you picked up on
I've created Nuntiklarin, which is it's a sub-language of Luthalen. So there's different groups of elves, and the only other one that will really meet in my books is the Moor elves, and so their language is loosely based off of Gaelic and Luthalen. So you kind of get that flair. And then I have Freyrish, which is the language of the fairies, which comes into book 3, and then you'll get introduced in book 2 to Katsogul, which is the language of Karzanov, which is more kind of just something that in the process of all this I've just created it. It's a more guttural. It's going to kind of more feel like a Russian or an Eastern European language.
Yeah, it's amazing. Scott, like, I'm really excited for you to get these books out there, and the fact that you got 2 more at different stages right now coming. Do you see how many books total are going to be in this series? Do you have an idea?
Between 6 and 8. Yeah, so
Wow. Okay.
I know eventually I'm going to have to let the baby go and let it off into the world. But there are a lot of character arcs that I need to close, a lot of plot holes that I need to close, and the amount of battles that are going to happen in each one of these subsequent books are going to take a lot. Like in book 2, I have like a 40-page battle scene. Like it's
wow.
They're pretty hefty chapters when it comes to battle, because I write it say from like the someone is looking over it with a drone and following all the pieces. So
right.
I'm guessing it's going to probably push 6 to 8 books. There's a whole lot of things that need to happen. A lot of death, unfortunately, and a lot of life lessons that need to be learned by everybody, and all of that.
It's amazing. Okay, Scott, so for people who want to come follow your journey, get more information about the books, and just keep in touch with you as you continue to write,
I would go to
where do you want to send the
Facebook.
listener?
I've been growing pretty fast on Facebook. We're nearing 1,000 followers over there, so it's kind of taken off like a wildfire. So if you go to Facebook and just look up Scott Hatfield, the author, you'll find the book cover with me, and basically in the same get up. So just find that, and it's going to have everything. It's going to have lore drops from throughout the story. It's going to have character art. It's going to have bits and pieces from the Eurovanian. It's that big document for 10,000 years. You're going to kind of see more behind the scenes. We just did a giveaway for my 500 followers, and if we can get up to 1,000, I'm going to be doing another giveaway. If we can get to 1,000 before end of December. So Facebook is definitely where it is. I would go there. I'm engaging over there. I ask a lot of questions for people, not just book content, but it's just me trying to engage with the community and show that, I'm more than just this person behind a screen and a set of words. But I do have, I do have TikTok. I do have Instagram. I do have basically everything, and everything is the same. It's Scott Hatfield, the author. But definitely go over to Facebook and join that community.
So there's many opportunities to have you back in the future as you continue to write, which I'm excited about because I love to have you back. And again, as we go into November and Veterans Day and Remembrance Day again, just thank you, Scott. It's one thing to go out and serve your country and to put your life on the line. It's another thing to care for the people who do that. So there's something special about you, and I'm very grateful that I have time with you to have you on the show. So,
well, awesome. And thank you for having me. And anytime, just message me and I'll come back.
Excellent. Everyone, all information is always in the show notes. For Scott, we'll give you the link to Facebook and everything. Go and definitely check it out and be part of the community. Let's surpass that 1,000 for the Facebook group in weeks. Come on, everyone. You can do this. Scott, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Have a great one.
Hey, thank you so much again for pressing play. As you've heard, great guests on the show. And one thing you didn't hear in this conversation is what? What did you not hear? Think about it for a second. That's right. Not a single solitary commercial for a mattress or a supplement or a whatever you call it. No. Why? Because we don't want to break up the conversation with commercials. So the fact that you're still here means that you are a fan of the show, I'm assuming. So if you want to help to keep the podcast going and to make me feel really happy, all I really care about is coffee, okay? I just got to be honest. I love coffee. I'm drinking one right now. It's starting to get cold. I need to warm it up. Helping us with our Buy Me a Coffee link over at livingthenextchapter.com and also in the show notes helps kind of keep the lights on around here. Remember, I'm doing this for free. I'm paying for everything. So I would love to have a little coffee donation, even $5 kind of fills up my cup. And I would love to enjoy a coffee from you. So if you're interested, again, thank you for listening. But you can use our Buy Me a Coffee link and fill up the cup. Thanks for being here.